Hi, this is Tracey Stranger, author of How to Overcome Stress Naturally. Today I'm interviewing Karen Scott, who I've just met very recently, but Karen has got an incredible story to tell, and Karen is a recent author herself. So let me first welcome Karen. Good morning, Karen.
Hi Tracy, how are you today?
Excellent. Now tell me the name of your book that you have just published and just got in your hand.
It is Rising from the Rubble.
And what is that story about?
Well, my story is about the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand, and I owned a business there, and in the February 2011 earthquake, I lost my business when the building fell down on top of us. A two-storey building next door to us come crashing through the roof, and so along with my daughter I was buried under the rubble. And I was very lucky that some brave men risked their lives and come into that building and got us out. So from that,
can you how long were you actually under the rubble for?
I'm not certain. It wasn't like a long time, but it seemed a long time at the time.
Yes.
One moment I was making lunches, it was lunchtime in my cafe, the next moment it was night time. So the day was a bit of a blur because I did suffer a fractured skull and concussion, and so I'm not certain of the time, but it wasn't days, it was just hours, a couple of hours, something like that.
So can I ask you, and your daughter was with you at that time, you were both under the rubble?
Yes.
And can you remember what was going through your mind?
Yes, that side of it very, very vividly, because that happened when there was an awareness that there was going to be an earthquake, but I didn't know it was going to be as bad as it was. But quite quickly, like seconds, you knew there was something different about the earthquake than the many we had experienced. And I looked up at her, and she was like frozen to the spot, and she was just standing there in shock, and I yelled at her and grabbed her hand and said, get out. And with that, we'd only taken 4 steps at the most, and the whole building just come crashing in on top of us. And my immediate thoughts were, and I mean, I just, you never lose sight of being a mother, you're just always a mother first, and it was like, oh my daughter, I was looking in her eyes, and it was just that look in her eyes of shock and disbelief, and I was looking in those eyes thinking, oh, I don't want my daughter to die, please don't let my daughter die. And that was my prayer that was going through my head. I was just saying, please God, don't let my daughter die. And then we were buried under the rubble, and that was the thoughts I was thinking. My daughter and I, we're going to die here today. There's no way we can get out of here. And then she's got 3 children, and I was thinking of her children, and I was like, please just get my daughter out. She's got her children and she can't leave her children. And so that was what it was about for me. It was just that I just didn't want my daughter to die. And so we were very, very lucky, because we were rescued and neither of us died that day. And then we were just out on the street, and it was just chaotic, absolute bedlam. There was just sirens, alarms, people walking around dazed and shocked. And then we just didn't know what to do, because there was no one to help you. You just left on the street. We had nothing then. Our cars were gone, our bags with our keys, our phones, everything. And the ground was just full of water and liquefaction and sand, and we were just walking through all this mess and seeing the city destroyed, just all these big concrete beams lying everywhere, flattened everything, and there was just people under those beams, and it was just a really horrific scene. And I guess it was just like it wasn't real, like this is like what you'd see in a movie, not what you actually living through. And then it was just that desperation of finding her children, because they were at 3 different schools in 3 different parts of the city, and we didn't know if it was worse where we were or worse somewhere else, and there was no way of communicating or finding out any information. And so I said, we've just got to start walking. We've got to find a car, we've got to find someone to lend us a car. And we come across a car sales place, and I said, I'm going to go and ask them to lend us a car. And she was like, you can't do that, they won't do that. And I said, well, I'm going to ask. We've got to get to the children, we've got to get a car. And so I went and asked him if he'd lend us a car, and he said, you won't get through, the roads are all blocked, there's no way you can get through. And I said, please just lend us the car, we have to try. Even if it takes hours, every little bit I feel we're getting closer to them, we've got to try. And so eventually he lent us a car. And
amazing.
My daughter knew, and he didn't even ask me my name, he just lent me this car. And my daughter knew the back roads around Christchurch, so we went a different way, and it was just horrific. The roads were all opened up, all these big holes in the road. And so we got this car and we went off, and we found all the children, got to each school, and they were all right. So for me, you know, we're very, very lucky. All of my family was all right.
And it's wonderful to hear. But what I that's why I feel so blessed to have met you. The two things that I heard you say there were, you believed, like you prayed that you wouldn't die, and that was your hope. You weren't thinking that you would die, but you just was, let me and my daughter be safe and the children be safe. So that was a belief and a hope that you had, and that's, I'm sure, helped you. And then you asked when you thought, I'm going to ask the salesman anyway to get the car. So it doesn't, you can always ask. It doesn't hurt to ask.
You don't
because
know.
People generally want to help.
No, exactly. And you can't just decide that they're going to say no, because you don't know till you ask. And I was like, well, we were in no different position. If he said no, well, we're still on the street walking, but I was going to find someone to lend us a car.
Yeah.
Because we needed it. We had to have that to get the children.
So well done. Can I fast track now? You're 1 year on, and you've actually written a book about your experience of being in that earthquake and buried under the rubble, which is incredible. But so can you just briefly give us the steps or your thoughts that have led you to where you are now?
Well, what I decided quite quickly after the earthquake was that I had lost in seconds what had taken me years to earn, so I knew that I had to find a different way, that I didn't want to take all those years to earn it again. So I made a decision that, well, my life's changed, so I've got to look at it differently. So I just went on a journey to find a different way. And so from going from seminars, I finally found the publisher of my book, Darren Stephens from Global Publishing. And listening to him speak, I just knew that that was the answer and that was the journey that I was going to take. And through doing that, I could see if I wrote a book, I could help others to get up and help themselves. Because I realised witnessing the sadness in people and the loss they'd had and the depression and the hopelessness that they were feeling, that I wanted to help people get up and going quickly again, because I think it's the best for your physical and mental state if you just get yourself up quickly and don't stay in that bad space. So I could see if I interviewed people that had had major adversities and serious tragedies in their life and that they've got themselves up and going, that I could show people how it could be done quickly. So that was the purpose of my book, is to help motivate and inspire people to get their lives back on track again when they've been through some disaster. And for everybody's got a story in their life, so it's not just about the earthquake was my story. For other people it might be a fire, it might be a flood, it might be a tornado, it could be bankruptcy, it could be death. There's lots of things that happen to us all, and so it's just to show anybody, whatever happens in your life, that you've got to look at what you've got out of that and move to the positive of it and to get yourself up and going again and learn through that experience to better your life or bring you some happiness or whatever.
So who are some of those people that you interviewed in your book, Karen?
Well, so some of them were people that had been, other business people I knew in Christchurch that had been through the earthquake, so it was about their business stories and how they got their businesses up and going quickly. One was Todd Blackadder, who is the coach for the Crusaders rugby team in Christchurch, New Zealand, and the team they lost their playing ground, so they couldn't play any games at home for the whole season. So they travelled the world like 3 times over. So they were on the road for 19 weeks. So their story and his belief that they were role models to Canterbury people to show them that if they could do it, they could do it too. So he felt that they had that responsibility to help the people as well, so that was what kept them going. And then I interviewed Mark Ingalls, who lost both his legs, and he climbed Mount Everest with artificial legs, and he's the only person to ever have done that. And I look at him and think, how did he get that mindset to think that he could when no one had done it before? And he didn't sit back and wait for someone to show him. He got up and done it himself first. Another story, I've got a chapter on Oprah Winfrey, and so that's about her journey. She's a very successful woman, as we know, and she started from very hard times as a very young child, being raped and abused. Anthony Robbins, he is someone I admire and a great motivator and inspirer. Well, he started with nothing. All of these people, they started the same as any of us, but they've still done, and they've done it, so we can too.
And the local mayor?
And he's the mayor of Christchurch. I interviewed him and to hear his feelings on his city, that he's got to oversee all this disaster and his city destroyed. I interviewed the police commissioner that was in charge on the day of the earthquake, and his story. I interviewed Lisa Davies, that was the head of TV1 News in Christchurch, and she was right on the forefront of it all, filming on the day right in the inner city. Radio announcers, and so a wide variety of people. Lance Armstrong and his, what he went through to overcome cancer, and he got out, and just after his chemotherapy he was out riding the bike again, where a lot of us would sit back and, we're sick or we're tired or we can't do this. Well, he can show he got up and done it. And another one that I think is amazing was W. Mitchell, and he was burnt, came off his motorbike and was burnt, very disfigured, and then years later he had a plane crash, and then he's paralysed, he's in a wheelchair, and he gets out and uses himself to show people, if you look like me, that he can still do it. He puts himself out there and tells his story, and he's in the Hall of Fame for a motivational speaker. And so all these people are just so amazing, and I just admire what they've done. And I think if we all look at that instead of thinking go in that victim state and a poor me, it's like, well, that'll keep you there. But if you go in the other way and look to all the people that have actually done it instead of hanging around with the people that are victims, you can think, oh, they done that, and their stories, and you'll always find someone whose story is much worse than yours, and they have got themselves up and going again. So whatever your story is, you can do it too. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Karen. I feel so uplifted by meeting you, to know that he's someone who's actually experienced that earthquake that affected so many people, and you were actually buried under that rubble, and here you are, meeting you face to face, and because you've had that positive belief, which demonstrates the power of the mind and what you really can achieve, and of the people that you've interviewed in your book that had a collective impact on how the recovery of Christchurch has unfolded and is still unfolding with the work to be done. So, Karen, where can people buy your book from?
Well, They can. It will be in bookstores, but you can also go to my website, which is www.risingfromtherubble.co.nz. No, sorry, it's .com.
So what was that web address again?
www.risingfromtherubble.com.
Excellent. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And are you available to give talks to groups of people?
Yes,
or
yes, I'd love to. That's what, that is my journey, that I'd love to get out there and speaking and helping people and showing them the way. I mean, it is simply about, it's only about your mindset, and it's just changing how you think and asking yourself different questions and finding a different direction and a different way.
And what's the best way for people to contact you?
They can go to they can either email me, which is Karen@kickstartlifecoach.co.nz, or also go to that website, which is www.kickstartlifecoach.co.nz.
Or through your website, risingfromtherubble.com,
yes,
through the Contact Us page.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to working with you going forward to show people that you can overcome stress naturally, you can overcome whatever adversity naturally, firstly by the mindset that you have and that passion in your heart to live, essentially, and do things a different way, which is what you said, that you didn't want to do things the same way. You've lost everything, and now you've got the opportunity to do and live a different way.
And it's just appreciate life. We're very, very lucky. We've got, wonderful countries. I'm in New Zealand, it's a beautiful country, and at the moment doing this interview I'm in Australia, and also a beautiful country. I think our countries are similar, and we're very, very lucky where we live, and it's to appreciate that. We have great lives.
Absolutely. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, and interestingly, here we are sitting at the Rendezvous Hotel in Melbourne, meeting for the second time, and I'm sure our paths will cross again.
Oh, definitely they will.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Tracey.